everyone. Now that's 2 weeks. Greetings, everyone. Yeah, this isn't a lecture thing. And, you know, respect to everyone here, but I really want to take my hat off to my younger brother, Kenny, because when people talk about decolonizing spaces, this is what we should be doing, not being involved in these conferences where they want £200, £300 for you to attend, and they want to charge you that for you to speak. So I think we really need to give a big round of applause. Because this is the second one that he's done here, because the first one we did was in Woolf College before, what was it, like 3 or 4 years ago, or something like that. So I just want us to acknowledge that because, you know, as Kenny implied, we're going to have some kind of conversations, okay? And I hope they will cause you some discomfort, because if they're too comfortable, why are we having it? Because as far as I'm concerned, we've inherited a society that is inherently racist, classist, and sexist. Our conversation should start from that premise. So I know I've only got like 20 minutes, I think. So let's go. We turn the lights.
Now the future of black man into the next millennium depends on the education centered around the Africa. It's time to make a change. Black people gotta get up. Black people gotta step up. You really gotta overstand. You gotta educate yourself as an African. You really gotta wake up. Black people need to shake up. You really gotta free your mind, and then we step up in a life. Now them send me to black and where them a talk about. You me know myself, they want to get me with doubt. Black man's burden was a cap on me mouth. Now they take it off, now a time to live out. Live out against a system that say white is right. From your grow up that they won't give you a fight. So me don't want to listen to Leslie. Me that much prefer listen to Presley. Oh, pirates we rock and roll deep for the blues. They say the niggas only fit the shiny shoes. It's time for you to step up. You gotta listen to break up. You really gotta overstand. You gotta educate yourself as an African. You really gotta wake up. Now you need to wake up. You really gotta free your mind, and then we step up in a night.
Now I made this tune with the late great Mikey Simpson, was one of the best producers I've ever worked with. Peace be upon him, he died a couple of years ago, young man, I'm in his 50s, early 50s. And the reason why I started with that tune is because when we were coming up to the new millennium, there was a lot of optimism, okay? And then Stephen Lawrence got murdered. And before him, Rohit Dogal, I think his name was, in Thamesmead, the other youth. And I wrote this tune for them when I wrote this lyric. Because I said, we got to make a change, but the people who are going to make the change is us, and I'm talking in the context of people of African ancestry. And the way we do that is to literally become African-centered. Doesn't matter where we are in the diaspora. So, what follows is an argument that reggae music and sound system culture can be understood as viable contributors to global black radical struggles against white supremacist thought and action. I read stuff on black radicalism in the UK, they don't mention reggae sound systems and reggae sound system culture. And to me, that is where black radicalism was found. And I'll give you some examples as we go. As such, we will consider the seminal role that performances of DJs and singers played in the conscientising of British blacks across a range of socio-cultural and political contexts. And when I say British blacks, little caveat there, I'm talking about anyone who's in Britain who perceives themselves as black. But it's different, yeah. We could get to that on the panel discussion. So I'm talking about experiences like this. So this was Saxon, I think it was in 1986 they did this for Greensleeves, and it's called Coughing Up Fire. And Les Back, who has featured as long as with Gabby, Robert, they've all spoken to the MA students. These are some of our Global Black Studies first cohort. And Les wrote a brilliant piece called Coughing Up Fire, read it. It's a brilliant piece. He went because he used to go to these dances and all that kind of stuff. But I want to just start with this, and those of you who've worked with me before, you know I use this a lot, okay. But the lyrics of the DJs define the furthest extreme of the Scrabble oral literary continuum in Jamaica. And mediated by a middle-class Scrabble sensibility, DJ Oracy articulates a distinctly urbanized folk ethos. Now this is Prof Carolyn Cooper, who I get on really well with, okay, sometimes. But this, for me, speaks to the fact that DJs, and you know, a DJ is a Jamaican who chats, like raps. So we're not talking DJ disc jockey, like our wonderful Nzinga people at the end here. We're talking people who chat lyrics, okay? So for me, the suggestion here is that really DJs can't write. They're at the, you know, it's almost like a polemic. There's a spectrum. You've got writers here and you've got DJs here who just chat, okay? Dancehall music is a subgenre of reggae with minimal connections to Rastafarianism, with little expression given in the song text to either religious, social, or political themes. Now this is an anthropologist, I know you said you love anthropologists, a guy called Nusha Vashinsky, and when I was an undergraduate, I quoted this in my undergraduate dissertation, okay? Because this is 1994. Garnet Silk was still around in 1994. So I don't understand, if you're saying that dancehall, the songs or the texts, if we want to call them that, have no religious, social or political themes, what's left? It doesn't make any sense. Because if you've got religious, social or political themes, what else is there to talk about? Well, someone enlightened me. So to me, it didn't make no sense. I thought it was one bag of foolishness, to be honest. But it was a good point of critique. And when you meet Paul Gilroy later, it was him and people like Les Back who introduced me to these sources so I could actually stretch my thinking. And this is the cover of my book, which was drafted from my doctoral thesis. And I'm going to take you through some of the stuff that I used in my research in an empirical sense, and then we'll think about how we can theorize. So the commonly held view is that dancehall DJs are semi-literate at best, uneducated and unsophisticated, while Henry, whose stage name is Leslie Lyrics, is on the threshold of opening new frontiers of respectability to the way people view being the first DJ to venture into the realms of academia. I don't know if that's true, but this is what he said. Okay. The British-based thoughtist, and I love that word, because Basil Waters is a Rastafari journalist in Jamaica. You know, as Rasta, we mess with language. And there's a section in that book, what was in my thesis called Thinking About Thoughists. Okay. So he says the British-based thoughtist thinker, who through his music is eloquently articulating the conditions of disaffected youth in Britain. So far, the plumbing engineer of 20 years has already broken new ground. And this was when I did a talk at University of West Indies, 2001. I was just preparing to submit my thesis. And it blew him away. So Miriam was reasoning afterwards, and then I met him to do the interview. And this was another one I did in Jamaica. So this was in 2006 when I launched this book there. And it says, a critique from the street refutes stereotypes. Now, one of the things that, you know, so me and my students, there's words that they'll hear and they'll say, like critical engagement. Where's your critical engagement? They'll tell you. But the other one is we look at recited truths. Because recited truths become concrete, then they can get reified. Then people get measured according to those recited truths. They're not the truth, they're a recited truth. So what this guy who interviewed me for this one said, a critique from the street refutes stereotypes. Because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to get those representations or misrepresentations of black youth, particularly in Britain, and explain how we counter them ourselves. Because music is integral to all aspects of black community life, it serves many functions and is performed by individuals and groups in both formal and informal settings. The fundamental concept that governs music performance in African and African-derived cultures is that music making is a participatory group activity that serves to unite black people into a cohesive group for a common purpose. Okay. That for me, is what reggae music and sound system culture does, or did for me. Now, sound system and sound system culture were everything for us in the early 80s. Football or sound system. The DJing aspect of the sound system enhanced our lives. My school books were covered in pictures of diagrams of preamps and speaker boxes. I had the names of the more prominent and well-known artists scrawled all over my school books. And it wasn't just black kids like me, white kids and some Asians gravitated towards it as well. The DJ spoke to and documented our condition. We all sailed in the same boat during Thatcher's Britain at the time. We were poor, voiceless, and occupied fringe status in British society. And that is Kenny Bigger Monroe's, who you know as Dr. Kenny. When we were reasoning one time, and I goes to him, I'm going to use that. Okay? So, for me, when we're talking about sound system culture, you know, this is the real deal. This is what you want to hear. They're not these little mobile discos with people sitting. Can't take in Shaka, yeah, sound system with a needle, scratch, chicken, sounds like fried chicken. Yes. But for me, crucially, it is above all in these performances that Black Britain has expressed the improvisation, spontaneity, and intimacy which are key characteristics of all New World black music. So now we're talking about how music morphs into different things. I said to you, in the context of myself being an African, I would recognize what Maltby spoke about that communal aspect. It gives you a way to have a communal voice. But according to this now, there are key characteristics of all New World black musics, providing a living bridge between them and African traditions of music making, which dissolve the distinctions between art and life, artifact and expression, which typify the contrasting traditions of Europe. And that's from Prof Paul Gilroy, you're going to meet later, Ain't No Black and Union Jack. What I like about that is, Paul is basically, so one of the things we discuss is the difference between roots and roots. So roots, R-O-T-S, Marcus Garvey, okay? If you don't have roots, you're gonna die, okay? But then there are R-O-U-T-E-S roots, Deleuze and Guattari, where they talk about cultural rhizomes. So rhizomorphic pattern is like a vine. What's the thing that someone said, mangrove, what's that? Yeah, I thought mangrove was a place in Notting Hill, but so the difference is, we can say we're rooted as Africans, but we can't claim Africanness. We can't claim an African identity if we come via the diaspora. Because to me, that's why I'm not into all these DNA. Something 400 years ago, you was in Ghana. 401 years ago, where was I then? You understand me? I ain't into none of that. I'm not disrespecting anyone who wants to get into it, it's fine. But I'm more into the rhizomorphic pattern, so I can say, yes, I'm African. I'm also Jamaican. I'm Southeast London. If I'm not Jamaican anymore, I'm Clarendon. My students will explain that. But the Jamaicans don't like me for some reason. So I just said, he's Clarendon. Clarendon, right? But the fact is, there are all these things that meth. So you know when people talk about interconnectivity and intersubjectivity and intersectionality, for me that's the obvious starting point for us as members of the human family, because we bring all these things to the table when we have conversations. So, one of my favorite human beings, we grew together, we've known each other from we were just starting secondary school, Sister Audrey. And when I interviewed her for my thesis, she said they've got all these DJs in the pop chart singing rubbish. What about the singers who sing about the things that affected the people that came from the Caribbean in the 1950s and are still affecting people now? Do you hear them on popular radio stations like Choice FM? This is an example of how things get lost, things that are really important to the generations of blacks born in Britain. You see the year? Those who can't see the board, 1987, okay? 1987. 1987 was 39 years after which event? Why are we here? Windrush. So Sister Audrey was critiquing how the Windrush generation was supposedly being treated in 1987. Look what she says. They said, come on over here, we've got plenty of work to share. Now 40 years later, we must go and get some papers. So this is from 1987. So why were people acting like it's new news? Oh, there's this hostile environment, oh, Windrush, blah, blah, blah. That's why I like Kenny's book, because Kenny grounds that. in that historical experience in his book on Windrush. So the Windrush scandal was not new news to the black communities in Britain who have been having these discussions for decades, and many of my friends and family were caught up in it. This guy was all over the TV. His name is Junior Green, okay? Used to live in Brockley, off St. Norbert's Road. We went to school at the same time. He went to, I think, Sedgwick, I went to Samuel Pepys. He has been my friend from we were in our early teens, okay? It broke my heart when I saw him on TV, because I knew his mum. I knew all of his family, okay? He went to Jamaica on holiday, and they wouldn't let him back in, so he could not bury his mother, okay? He couldn't bury his mother. It was all over the BBC. Here it is, look. Windrush victim broke down in tears last night. Now, Junior Green came to England when he was about 7. He was educated here, everything. He worked here, had family, had grandchildren, and yet they wouldn't let him in. And the reason why, for me, this is important is because this human story gets missed. But more importantly, it's not historically placed accurately. If people knew that from the 70s, like my oldest daughter's mother, who came to England when she was 9, I think it was in 1979, so I'm trying to think of how old I am. She would have been about 21, 22. They were going to deport her. They were going to deport her because her father lived in America. And I think it was something about you had to have your father's nationality to stay. Your father had to be whatever it was. And they were going to deport her. And I'm like, you don't even know Jamaica. You've done everything here. You trained to be a midwife here, but they were going to deport her. Now these are DJs I used to work with. So Papa Levi on Saxon, Papa Benji on Diamond's Girl's Best Friend from West London. You hear what they're talking about. We were supposed to be apolitical as black youth in the 80s. But what are they talking about? The political environment. More importantly, Levi at the top says he makes a conscious choice. He doesn't care who wins the election because he knows his position is not going to change. That's why I kind of smiled a bit when I heard people saying grime for Corbyn was the first time black youth ever mobilised. Joy, am I lying? Yeah. That's what they were saying. Grime for Corbyn was the first time black youth in Britain have ever been conscientised and not apolitical. But here we are, 1983, 1984, and here's my favourite, I'm nearly done.
If you want a few for Labour, we have a vote for. We have a vote on Margaret Thatcher.
So this is what was going on within these spaces where people were basically saying we were apolitical. Lorna G was about 19 when she did this lyric. But people who aren't privy to what happens within those spaces are not going to understand those alternative knowledges. Plural, okay? So we must not underestimate the ways in which our own experiences have generated ways of seeing the world that are insightful, innovative, and more relevant to the challenges that we face based on our own experiences. Therefore, we need to be more confident when we deploy these self-generated concepts as they particularly speak to our own experiences. That does not mean that we accept our own categories without interrogation. And anyone who's ever worked with me, my students will tell you, critical engagement. Yeah. I don't want anyone just assuming this is good because I don't care who said it. You need to substantiate why you invest in that claim. So, what it means is that we recognize what it is they are trying to capture, which has not been, in my opinion, accurately defined before. The DJs are giving us the functioning word which we need to make flesh and give expression to as we come out of an era of cultural reflection and analysis. And this is Prof Rupert Lewis, who you'll probably know from the stuff he does on Garvey. So it's up there with Tony Martin on writing about Garvey, okay? So this is Maccabee, okay, who for me is the most consistent British reggae performer. Been putting albums out for probably nearly 40 years now, over 30 odd years. And again, he's someone I reason with a lot, and I reason with him for my thesis. And he said, every time you hear a word, it conjures up an image. Therefore, my mission is to fashion my words in a way that reflects the plight of the African and doesn't reinforce the negativity that is associated with the motherland. So my lyrics are like a stepping stone to educate the youths and help us get back to where we once were. And reggae music is the vehicle to carry that message. So I thank you for your time. This is our MA that we were talking about. Yeah, I've got flagged it, mate, to try and get more students. And thank you for your time. Cheers.